नमस्कार मित्रों, myself Ajay Arya. This is the YouTube channel Watch Party, and today I am here to discuss the Sino-Russian-US relation, the love-hate triangle that has been stirred up by the Russia-Ukraine war. For your perusal, I will be sharing my screen and showing you this particular diagram or flow chart. Let me first recognize all these objects here. This orange triangle with the green circle is India. By the way, this image has been roughly organized according to the world map. So this is the Indian peninsula. On the right, we have Japan. At the bottom, this oval represents Australia. And upwards, we see the Chinese flag here. And then Mongolia. At the top, we have Russia. These are the few things that we need to mention first. The reason why I bring Australia into the picture is because yesterday the Quad was in news. Quad, as in 4 countries together. What are these 4 countries? India, Japan, Australia, and Russia. These are the 4 countries that have bundled together in the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis and whatever has followed to the Russian war on Ukraine. Now that we have recognized the Quad, let's look at the 5th party in question, which is China. This is not going to be a very long video, just a couple of points. This is Ukraine with a U. Russia is fighting Ukraine, and Ukraine has tried to fight back to counter NATO. North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which is made up of 30 countries, out of which states on the far left, as in the Pentagon, and 28 European countries and 1 Eurasian country, which is Turkey or Turkmenistan. These 30 countries form a strategic group, as in weapons and money, for hegemony over the whole world or world power. Now, Russia, in stark contradiction to the United States stance over Ukraine being a NATO ally, also has started a war in Ukraine. It is only a matter of time and we'll know whether Ukraine is taken over by Russia or NATO and its allies, which could be China, or in simpler words, whether NATO will actually set Ukraine free. According to news, odds are in Russia's favor. It seems like Russia will be taking over Ukraine and will have hegemony, which is control over Ukrainian soil. That will definitely weaken the hearts of the country or the countrymen of NATO. You can think of NATO as Europe and the US to simplify. EU has been dissolved, but never mind. Europe and the US mostly consist of NATO and Turkey. Now, what about this Quad? Quad consists of India, Japan, Russia, and lastly, Australia. So people have taken sides. Now, China could either support Russia to create arms and ammunitions with their money, mostly material or weapons themselves. So there is a possibility of, so this being China and that being Russia, there is a possibility that China could support Russia to weaken NATO. As we all are aware that China has strategically been taking over Australia, Europe, and also has a port in Sri Lanka. China has also financed a rail line from China to Kazakhstan. That being said, China is definitely trying to be a financial as well as strategic superpower. And NATO or the US would never want that. So my gut feeling is that China might be supporting Russia for producing arms and ammunition. Russia has a lot of resources at its hands: land and oil, gas, and minerals. Also, weaponry, weapon systems, and the means to produce them. If China were to help Russia, and now that Japan, Australia, India, and Russia are together, then we can say that NATO's game is almost over. Not to discount the fact that US is the largest military on paper till date, and Europe has its own powerfulness. But this is definitely a step backwards. So it has put NATO on the back foot. Now, what could happen otherwise? China could support US because of trade reasons and NATO because of trade reasons, because China makes a lot of money by selling goods to the whole world. Europe, US and US controlled nations, which include Emirates, somewhere here, and other nations. China could probably support US, Europe, and US controlled nations to sell more and more and become a larger power economically, and hence later strategically as well. We should not forget the Koreans, both North Korea and South Korea, which exists somewhere close to Japan. Interesting fact is that China probably would never mind growing more and more in prosperity, which means mostly financially and hence later strategically. But Russia has already started the timer. Russia has pulled the trigger by putting a gun to Ukraine or the NATO's head, if you will. Now, China must be in a very difficult position as to how to take sides, because India is both a market and also a competitor. The Make in India program has always been a threat to Chinese dominance at making cheap goods. India is more a labor force to the Western world, whereas China is more a goods provider. We are more a service provider, whereas China is more a goods provider. We as in the IT industry, and them as in a lot of things apart from goods. Now, India has taken Russia's side in a way. The reason behind it is very clear, is because India has most of its military hardware is either Israeli, but very much Russian. Russia has been a long time ally. Even at the time of the Soviet Union, India and Russia have had strong ties. Now that Indian military has that much Russian hardware, it would be absolutely stupid to speak or act against Russia. So we are locked in with Russia right here. Now we may not be able to help Russia because mostly for conservative reasons, as in why should we meddle and deploy resources. That is for NATO to oppose the Russian invasion. So we have taken a very silent stance on that. Point worth mentioning is that a lot of Air India flights have brought Indians home, but strategically speaking, we probably will not partake so directly into the Russia-Ukraine war. But in the long run, we may have to take stances. In other news, a BrahMOS missile was fired into Pakistan from Haryana in India. This BrahMOS missile, without an explosive payload, as in a missile that was not explosive, like a bullet without an explosive, was fired into Pakistan, and it is said that it was done accidentally. It has damaged a building, but because it did not have an explosive payload on top of it, nuclear, non-nuclear, both are possible with a BrahMOS missile, but it was just a blank shot in simple terms. And yes, it damaged one building. Investigation is underway in which a group captain is being reprimanded by an airfield marshal, both whose names remain disenclosed. So something can be made of this, that probably this is the start of a new world war, or shall I say WW3. So the BrahMOS missile more or less was India's stance on it, but not obviously the top authority like respected cabinet ministers. The defense minister has not approved of it, it seems, and it has still been fired. So the army is probably already making its point by showing aggression towards Pakistan, whereas China is making a small point by showing aggression towards India here. These, in my opinion, are just small games. These are urgent matters which are being settled urgently. That China wants a piece of Arunachal or something like that, and India wants POK or something like that. Not that India would ever fire anything on China for Aksai Chin, because China is a giant dragon not to be meddled with. US is aware of that, and China is well aware of its power. Now, with great power comes great responsibility. Let us go into two more issues. COVID-19 was started in China, and I'm not blaming Chinese authorities for this, but it seems that intentionally or unintentionally, the virus spread out from China. By the way, China did not get damaged by COVID as much as India did, and so did the States, so did Europe. And there were two drone attacks on Abu Dhabi airport in the UAE. So we see that some sort of bioterrorism and a new age terrorism, let's call it drone terrorism, has started taking its roots. If you connect the dots too much, you might blame China for it. But I don't say that the top leadership of a country does it. Just like the 26/11 attacks were blamed on Pakistan, so was Pulwama, and we attacked back on Pakistan itself. But we didn't say that the top military leadership is responsible, or even the government. We did attack on the terrorist uh, incubation centers or the training centers. So one must never say that the top leadership is responsible for it, but who knows, it can be both ways. Now, China has bought a lot of things, as in property, in Europe and Australia also. Australia has become a very weak country, and so has Europe. Especially, the reason is not the dissolution of EU, the European Union. In fact, the European Union has been dissolved because Europe has weakened under UK or Britain. Now, this is very complex when we come into small things, but what it seems is that this is a competition for world domination between at least two countries, the China and the United States. And Russia wants to play too. Now, China has to decide which side it will take, because India has taken sides. Russia, Japan, Australia, and India. Now, if China takes the fifth position, which will be the top position in this system, then we must say that NATO will be very hurt, and it will be the start of the downfall of the United States. The dollar being the reserve currency, the Bretton Woods system, and also the soft culture that has been embedded throughout the world using Hollywood, and of course, the US military, which can be very hurt once it starts deploying resources and utilizing them in this war. It seems like life is worth living when we are at the verge of World War III. Thank you for watching my video. Like, share, and subscribe, and do not press the bell icon. That was time. Have a good one.